Gentlemen, back with you. Let's get to it. Are protesters encouraging or discouraging the judicial reforms plans? As always, we begin with a quick fire round, 30 seconds each to lay out your initial stance on the matter, and we pick up the conversation now from there. So Yoav, Keren, please take the lead. Your 30 seconds are on.
Yes, of course, it does. Yes, of course, it does affect and discourages the reforms. It is there's research about that when there's a protest, it will help. And if it's big enough, if over 3% of the population goes out, it will stop that. And I think this is exactly what happened when Gallant was fired. A lot of people went out, and Bibi stopped at that point. Hopefully, this will continue.
Yeah, Gilad Katz, your thoughts?
The 3% that my colleague has just now mentioned, I don't know, it takes me back to what Ehud Barak has been saying. And Ehud Barak, I see him as one of the most dangerous people today in Israel. He wants to see the demonstrations going more and more violent, because he understands, according to his philosophy, that the only way that the Israeli government will be toppled is by violence. So the 3% is, if 3% of the Israeli population will go out to the streets, then the government will topple. I think that's dangerous. It has to be stopped, and it has to be stopped now.
Last but not least, Ben-Dror, Yemini.
Okay, needless to say, of course, demonstrations will have impact. It was before. It was mentioned already that there is research about when does it begin to have an impact on the government, on the change, and it brings change. But it might be counterproductive from a point that people will begin, for example, to refuse to go to the army to make their service. It might be counterproductive, because many people right now that support, speaking about people from the center and even from the right, they might leave their support, not support because of that.
Okay.
We have to bear it in mind.
And on that note, gentlemen, let's feel free to interact from this point onwards, and let's begin our conversation from this. Whether it's a legitimate protest or anarchy, or bordering anarchy, because what we're seeing are reports that ambulances could not reach hospitals due to the many roadblocks, etc. So the question is, Yoav, Keren, should there be any limits to civil disruption?
Well, the limits, of course, should be in violence. And, I want to refer to what Mr. Katz just said. And I haven't seen violence, any significant violence coming from protesters. We have had, millions of people overall, if you look at all the demonstrations in the past 6 months, going out there in the streets, and very, very few, cases of violence coming from the protesters themselves. It was more police and those kind of conflicts. So I'm not referring to what I'm not sure that this is what Ehud Barak is calling for an actual violence. He was actually talking a different way. I do think the limits, that's where the limit should be. And this is what we're doing. This is, today I was a part of the high-tech protesters in Kaplan in the morning, and there was no violence there. We were out there protesting and calling for the government to stop.
Let me say that unfortunately, some people like Yair Golan, like Ehud Barak, who called for being more extreme. I mean, what they are doing actually is counterproductive. What they are doing is actually might harm the demonstration, might harm the protest. I think that we need more people. I mean, if you want to make a change, you need more people. You have to convince more people. And by telling soldiers, for example, or reservists, don't go to serve, don't fulfill your duties, it will bring so many people out of the camp. It will just make the opposite of what they want to do, of what they want to achieve. And unfortunately, this is part of what is going on. And I do not understand those clever people who give this kind of advices that actually distance so many people from the protest.
Mr. Katz, yeah.
Well, I think that their hatred is overcoming their cleverness or whatever. But I would like to talk about violence, because I think that once people breach the law, that is a kind or sort of violence. Blocking day in, day out, week in, week out, Ayalon, which is considered to be one of the most important roads in the country, blocking that is considered to be violence. Blocking the international airport is violence. Going into a street, a neighborhood, a civilian neighborhood in Modi'in, adjacent to Yariv Levin, the Minister of Justice, and setting on fire tires in the middle of a street is violence. That is violence. That's a breach of the law, and that is what I see as violence. And I don't see anyone, not Lapid, not Barak, not Gantz, condemning those breaches of law, meaning they would like to see more and more breaching of the law, which in my eyes and in the eyes of you know what, forget me, in the eyes of the law, that is considered to be violence. There's no other word to use, yeah. Explain these actions. Now, if you think that is considered to be democracy, well, I disagree. That's not democracy. That's coming very close to anarchy.
Mr. Keren.
Oh, well, I think that's
please, Ben-Dror.
That's far from being an anarchy. That's far from being an anarchy. We are protesting in order to keep this country democratic. And the fact trying to manipulate this as being a violence is far from the truth.
Do you agree that it's a breach of the law? Do you agree it's a breach of the law?
Look, protest happens in different ways in different places. It's really interesting that you it's very important for you, the law, but you don't care that the laws are going to change here and turn this country into a dictatorship. This is what these people are trying to do. They're trying to change the laws here. Yeah. You're trying to change the laws here. Not you. The government is trying to change the laws here, and weaken.
What do they try to change?
They've just passed a law yesterday. What are you talking about? That was the first piece, cutting off the first piece of democracy, and we're not going to give up on that.
What implication, besides cliches, what implication does it have on you, on Ben-Dror Yemini, on Israelis, on your life? Zero.
That's...
No, it's not zero. It might limit.
You're right. It's quite zero.
No, it might limit the Supreme Court. Now, I think that there should be. No, wait, please wait.
I think Mr. Katz, let's allow Ben-Dror to chime in, and we will get back to you in a second. Yeah.
Excuse me. Let me finish with my argument. It might limit the Supreme Court. That's one, which is not good. Now, there must be some reform. There must be some limitations, but not the kind of limitations of this coalition, which is against democracy. That's one. Now, let's not forget, you spoke about breaching the law and so on. Let's not forget what happened here a year and 2 years ago when the people from the Right Now coalition, when they demonstrated in the front of the houses of Zev Elkin and other brutal demonstrations, vulgaric demonstrations of hooligans.
The same.
I did not hear Benjamin Netanyahu condemning that. Come on, so let's not be hypocrites.
Did they block?
You did it before, and now you complain that others are doing
I'm not
it.
complaining.
I mean, you gave them the lesson. You showed them how to behave. So you cannot deny.
Ben-Dror, I am totally for demonstrations. There are demonstrations that, even though they are according to the law, I don't think I would take part of them. But demonstrating is part of democracy. What these riots are, it's not demonstrations. Blocking Ayalon Road week in, week out is not considered to be part of democracy. That's so simple. How can you even try to explain it?
And what they did to Edith Silman and to Zev Elkin when they were in the opposition, and they tried to force them to support the opposition. That was good. It was against the law.
I'm not saying. I am not. One second. I'm not saying.
What you are trying to do is turn every week, every Saturday for 26 or 27 weeks. I lost the count. We have demonstrations that are organized in city centers. We're not blocking the streets. They're not violent.
Hold your thoughts right there. We still have so much more to unpack. A few minutes break and we're back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the summit. Still with us, Ben-Dror Yemini, Gilad Katz, and Yoav Keren. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for staying with us. We're also, of course, staying on topic. So much more to unpack. But before we get back to our conversation, let's cross now live to I-24 News correspondent Hamda Salhout out and about in Tel Aviv. Hamda, you've been at the International Ben-Gurion Airport earlier in the day. Complete chaos there, and now is chaos following you?
Ellie, great to be with you. Behind me here is Ayalon Highway, a road that has been significantly blocked throughout these 27 weeks of demonstrations. You can actually see a big police presence there, officers mounted on horseback, and even the water cannon that did dispatch on some demonstrators trying to break through to the highway. Now, demonstrators here are telling me that both the coalition and the opposition need to come to the table for some sort of discussion about the judicial overhaul, but members of the coalition are saying that they simply will not budge. Today, Simcha Rothman is saying that it's simply too late to amend any of the the amendments or any of the text inside the first reading of the reasonableness clause, because they're hoping to pass this before the Knesset summer recess, which is at the end of the month. But demonstrators here are saying that it's, quote, bullying. They feel that the country is now being bullied into a system that they do not want. We're going to have our cameraman pan here to the thousands of demonstrators that are here in a large force trying to show the Israeli government that they will not be silenced. It has been months of these demonstrations, and they say they will continue to be out for months to come because of the government's demands, and they simply will not be standing for the continuation of these judicial overhaul bills without more disruptions and more disturbances in the days, weeks, and months to come. Ellie.
I-24 News correspondent Hamda Salhout there, and interestingly enough, among the many flags we're seeing there, also the American flag. And, you know, for so many years, the fear was that Israel is becoming a non-bipartisan issue in the U.S. Now, is it the other way around? America is becoming a divisive issue here in Israel. Hamda Salhout, thank you very much for this. Gentlemen, back with you. Another quick fire round, 30 seconds each. Will the coalition go all the way? Ben-Dror Yemini, please take the lead.
It looks like. I mean, we see the damage that was carried out. I mean, we are speaking about 6 months of this judicial overhaul, and we see that the damage is accumulating more and more and more. Speaking about security, speaking about economy, speaking about any aspects that we can think about. And they go on. Why? Why do you go on when you know that actually you damage the basic
fabric,
the basic rest of Israel? And they go on. And I'm afraid that they might go on without considering the huge damage to the Israeli, to the state, to the economy, to the security.
Ben-Dror, we will just continue our quick fire round and then keep it on from there. Yoav, Keren, your 30 seconds are on.
Well, I listened to Netanyahu and I listened to Levine and Rotman, and they say full heart that they intend to continue. And I believe them. I tend to believe them, and I follow their acts. This is exactly what they're doing. They've just passed the first piece yesterday. I'm not into all these assessments. They're going to do this and that and change this and that. I believe them, and I think that we should continue strongly fight this reform.
Last but not least, Gilad Katz. Do you believe them?
Well, unfortunately, it looks like my colleagues are in an alternative reality. I would just like to remind them that the Likud, Rotman, the coalition has been sitting around the negotiation table with the president throughout the last weeks. And just to remind you, Lapid and Gantz have been threatening time and time again that they'll leave, because if the coalition won't accept all their demands, then they'll leave. Well, that's not how we do negotiations. And I think that the
Gilad,
government
like me, that if Netanyahu wants to go back to the table and close this, he can do that, and he doesn't want that. That's the whole issue here. He's not interested because he's going to lose his coalition, and that is the issue. This is why he's not going back to the table. If he will go back to the table, there's things that can be agreed. We all know, everyone knows that even on this issue, on this law. There's things that everyone were okay with.
The table. I'm sorry. I'm telling you, Netanyahu has never left the table. Lapid left the table. Gantz left the table.
Netanyahu was never at the table. That's the whole issue.
Left the table. You want to go back to the table? Tell them to come back.
I've heard Gantz and Lapid calling him to go back, and Rotman saying and Levine saying they're not gonna come back to the discussions.
They told him they'll come back only if the coalition will stop everything. Well, that doesn't work. You can't put a pistol to your head and say, if you do what I say, then everything's fine. And if not, then I'm not coming. It doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. I know that Gantz and Lapid don't understand what democracy is in their parties, because they don't have democracy parties, but it doesn't work that way.
Okay, there is a huge difference between coalition and opposition, because first of all, coalition has the power to do whatever it wants. Now, that's one. Second, Netanyahu is totally subordinated, occupied by the extreme parts of his coalition, speaking about the extreme ultra-Orthodox and speaking about the extreme right. Totally. I mean, he cannot even do what he wants to do. I don't know what he wants because it's not clear anymore. Unfortunately, I wish we could know what Netanyahu wants, but we do not know what he wants. What we know is that whenever he's saying something, for example, to the Wall Street Journal just 10 days ago, he's coming to Israel and then he's saying the opposite. To the Wall Street Journal in English, he's saying, no, we are going to stop this kind of judicial overhaul. Everything will be with concessions. We are going to have to agree with the opposition. When he's coming back to Israel, he's saying to his people, no, we are going to continue, just like if he said nothing just some hours ago before to the Wall Street Journal. This is the way that he behaves. And it looks like if he is in between. And actually, eventually, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and Gafni and Pindrus, they dictate what the coalition is going to do. And they do not represent the majority.
And it's more than that. It's more than that. Sorry, it's more than that.
They do not represent people like me. That for years I'm actually asking for judicial reform.
Yoav, Keren, please chime in. Please, Chen.
Yeah, it's more than that. The thing is, they don't care of the what happens now as a result. Look, I'm coming from the high tech protest group, and what's happening to the high tech in Israel in the past 6 months is just terrible. We had a 68% decrease in investments in the first 6 months relative to the first 6 months of 22. We have 80% of startups started by Israeli entrepreneurs registered in the U.S. and other places around the world because they're afraid to start it over here. And this is when things are getting better in Europe and in the U.S. And now the high tech is the leading industry and the most that pushes our economy forward, and it is just being destroyed. And Netanyahu, who was Mr. Economy, is not Mr. Economy anymore. He doesn't care about that anymore. He's Mr. Reform. He's Mr. Changing the laws, and this
Mr.
is
Reform.
something.
Well, that's a good nickname. I'll give you that. Yoav, Keren, Ben-Dror, Yemini, Gilad Katz. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today. But thank you so very much for joining us. We appreciate your time, your insights, and we will see you back on the show soon enough, I suspect. Hey, I see you liked it. Want more? Just hit the subscribe button right here. Go on. I know you want to.